Fleur Hasan. I'm originally from a little place called Gibraltar, which is in southern Spain. So it's kind of like Puerto Rico of the UK, that's what it is. So I grew up speaking Spanish and English, but we're British over there. And thankfully there were no colleges when I was 18, so they sent me to the UK. I say thankfully because it's a very tiny place and you can't wait to get out by the time you're 18. It's like a kibbutz. And so I studied in the UK. I'm a lawyer by profession. I made Aliyah with my husband. We were a young couple, no kids at that point, in 2001, which was one of the worst possible years for Jerusalem because it was the second intifada. Some of you are too young to remember. It was 23 years ago. And unfortunately, we had to deal with urban warfare in the streets of Jerusalem, cafes being blown up, buses being blown up, for one reason, that we dared to offer a two-state solution to Yasser Arafat, who at the time was a leader of the Palestinians. And instead of saying yes, and we could be celebrating now 22 years of a Palestinian state, he said no and went to war with Israel on our streets. And so when I hear people talking about a two-state solution, it's like we didn't try before, you know what I mean? Like, we've been here. Anyway, I digress, back to me. That's when I made Aliyah. I worked many years in non-profit. I knew I didn't want to be a lawyer in Israel because I didn't speak Hebrew when I made Aliyah. And so, you know, law is all about language and nuance. So I decided to do something which to me was more meaningful. So I started working in non-profit. I worked in JDC for many years. For those of you who know, it's an largest American humanitarian aid organization in the world. Big focus on Israel, a lot of diaspora communities in need also. And then I was in nonprofit for a number of years. I was the executive director of another organization called Tikva, which is Jewish orphans from Ukraine, who unfortunately today had to move to, in the last 2 years since the war with Ukraine, have had to move to Romania. And then I was a communication consultant for many years, so I used to help people with messaging and public speaking. And through that consultancy role, I came into connections with local government, and I started helping a small local party. Is that cold or hot? I'm assuming cold. Everything's so cold always in the winter in this country. Anyway, so then I basically got involved in local government. I ran for city council. I've been a city councilwoman for 8 years and deputy mayor for 5 years. 3 years ago, I set up, I'm the co-founder of the UAE Israel Business Council and the Gulf Israel Women's Forum. And so I was very involved in the Abraham Accords, very involved in people-to-people peace. And it was going very well until October 7th. But I'm still very hopeful, actually, about what can happen in the future with that. And over the last few months, since the start of the war, I've been essentially fighting Israel's battle on the media, American media, British and Spanish-speaking media. That's really what I've been doing full-time, amongst programs to help resettle evacuees, help bring volunteers to Israel, help people with empty apartments, open them up for different people who needed it from around the country. Jerusalem is home to 50,000 evacuees, 35,000 are in hotels, and others are renting apartments or in apartments that we managed to get as a contribution. And, you know, of all the years that I've been here, I think this is the worst possible time, not just in Israel, in our generation, but definitely for the Jewish people everywhere in the world. And I think that we're not even aware of how this is going to affect us in the long term. And so I want to thank you all for being here because, you know, as I always say, Israel is the only country that people fly in for a war. So thank you for flying in for the war. Thank you for bearing witness and going around to see what's going on in the country. And you know, and as the Jewish people always do, we will prevail. There's no doubt we're going to win this war. That's not the question. The question is what the price of winning this war is going to be. What other war is coming around the corner? And that's really the main issues that we have. So I'm happy to spend the rest of the time answering your questions. Or if you want, I can elaborate on either Jerusalem, continue with the Abraham Accords, war, whatever you want. happy to just open a dialogue. Yes.
Because of like Abraham Accords and like the face of death of tourism in like the Arab states, are they ever allowed to like? Do they ever say anything like how? Like I know they're pro Hamas, quote unquote, or they're never not pro Hamas, not pro Hamas. The other Arab nations surrounding like Israel.
Yeah.
Right. They're like tourism. Like a lot has been kind of killed since October 7th.
Which countries are you talking about?
Okay, fine.
Not as Egypt.
No, fine.
You know,
no.
Lebanon
Like even
is,
Morocco, right?
Morocco.
Like Morocco, right? That was always friendly with Israel. Like they'll say, I'm just giving a small example. There were like 10 programs there last Pesach.
I know.
They're not having any this
canceled.
year, right? They're all canceled. So they are pro-Israel, but really,
they're not pro-Israel.
Right?
The governments are pro-Israel, but the people. The problem is that the Palestinian cause plays very well on the Muslim street. And so everybody uses the whole Israel-Hamas war at the moment to put all of their frustrations, and this is really the destiny of the Jewish people, that we're always scapegoated for whatever ills exist in the day. So 500 years ago, when my family were kicked out of Spain, it was a religious reason, right? We were Christ killers. And then 100 years ago, when many of your families suffered the atrocities of the Holocaust, it was ethnic. Jews were ethnically inferior. And then when the world is against the communists, Jews are communists. When the world is against globalists and capitalists, Jews are globalists and capitalists. And today, we are somehow, instead of seeing us for what we are, which is the greatest decolonization project in the last 100 years, somehow we became colonizers. Why? Because the woke, toxic culture is all about the original sin, which is white oppression, and somehow we become the white oppressors, even though we're neither oppressors or white. And so that is the destiny of the Jewish people, is always that you will be blamed for everything. So in the Arab world, it's no less.
Right. But like, let's say like a country like Dubai, I'm sure not as great extent, let's say, as maybe others. They've also, I'm sure, been hit by the lack of tourism or something
Dubai
to their country. No?
We have to understand, Israel is a very small market, okay? So yes, there's many, I think Morocco is way more affected without Jewish and Israeli tourism than Dubai. Dubai has tourists from all over the world. They don't really need us for tourism, even though we did save their skins during COVID, but put that aside. You have to understand that the Arab world is being split into two right now, okay? The countries that want peace and prosperity for themselves, for their people, and the countries that want radicalism, jihadism, fundamentalism, which is led by Iran. And the UAE made peace with Israel because they are not in the camp of Iran. They hate Iran. And so we share enemies. And so they're not going anywhere. The peace treaties are not going to break off. But people are just being very quiet about it. Whether there was much more vocal about, hey, Israel, great, they're coming over. Now they're just quiet about it. I get text messages every other day from friends from Dubai. They're concerned about us. They know who Hamas is. They got rid of their own fundamentalists 10 years ago. But they can't talk.
How do you get rid of it, like effectively, the way that they did?
They kicked them all out. And they didn't make apologies and no need for context. Yes.
Regarding the peace treaties and the Abraham Accords, what is going on with Saudi Arabia? Because they're saying that they're not going to go ahead with it unless Israel provides a Palestinian state.
So, Saudi Arabia is interested in one thing. They don't care about the Palestinians and they don't care about us. They care about a defense pact deal with the United States. And if you ask me, off record, I will say, I don't think they care about the two-state solution, something the Biden administration is kind of pushing them into in order to move forward with their agenda. That's the way I see it.
So how do you feel like that can resolve itself?
How can it resolve
meaning
itself?
like in terms of Saudi Arabia getting back on board, how would that?
They will be on board.
Even if there's no Palestinian state?
I think that all the Saudis really wanted was the beginning of a process. We could do that.
Because they seem very, very friendly. Like on social media, at least, I follow some of those accounts.
They hate Hamas.
Right.
They see Hamas as funded by Iran and they all hate Iran. And until the world deals with Iran the way the world dealt with Hitler, we're going to have a clear and present threat. And eventually we will be at war. The whole world will be at war with Iran. The question is, are we going to do it now or we're gonna kick the can down the road until they have a nuclear weapon.
Sorry, I
That's
just
the
have one more question about Iran, because a lot of the people seem to be pro-Israel who live in Iran.
Yes, we would be doing them the biggest favor if we got rid of the Islamic regime. They are begging. And by the way, all around the world, all those demonstrations, the biggest supporters of Israel right now, the Iranians abroad.
Right.
I was in a demonstration in London a few weeks ago. All the Iranians showed up. They're amazing.
Mhm.
Well, they're saying the Shah son is going to come back with a revival, and they're hoping for that. That's what they're pushing for.
Look, I don't know whether a monarchy is the solution for them, but certainly not what they have right now. I mean, we'll see. I hope so. I mean, they were a very friendly country with Israel before the jihadi revolution.
So who are the horrible anti-Semites in London? Just as an aside, that was not my question. I'm not taking that
As an
as my
aside,
question.
the horrible anti-Semites in London are a combination of Islamists and woke idiots.
No different than anywhere else in the world. Okay, so my question though is, so you're responsible for some of the PR. So we always, I have a few friends that I speak to that we always joke about the fact that Israel doesn't do PR. And
It doesn't
there's-
do it well now.
Oh, well, we joke that they don't do it, but I feel very strongly to what you said, that Israel shouldn't bother, because it's not gonna matter whether, how they present themselves, it's gonna be viewed as wrong.
I don't agree with you, and
Okay.
I'll tell you why. I mean, there are some mornings I wake up and I do press all day long. There are some mornings I wake up and I'm like, why do I bother? Really, they hate us anyway. But we can't give up that fight. We can't give up that fight. There's another war going on for hearts and minds and for rhetoric and for PR. And you would think that the Jewish people, who are the biggest communication companies and PR companies in Hollywood in the world, would have this, and we don't. And partly I blame Israeli arrogance to think that who cares? I don't think we should give up on that war, and if nothing else, the people who hate us, right? They do. The people who love us.
And what,
But there's a majority of people in the middle who don't know anything. Those are the people we
how,
need to
so
inform.
what would your message be? If you could,
Message, or what would my strategy?
Both.
Both. Well, if the country actually had a strategy, that would be a really good start. But they don't. Because everything here is about putting out fires. And part of the reason is because Netanyahu thought that he was a one-man show, which for a while he was. But it doesn't wash anymore, and not on TikTok, and not here, not there. And so we need to come up with a national strategy, taking the best talents. We are the startup nation, for God's sake. We punch above our weight for everything. Why can't we punch above our weight for this?
but what is that bottom line message that you're trying to get out though, as part of that strategy? Because I think we're all sort of, we've seen so much here over the last 4 days that we're trying to absorb and go home. We have messages, this happened, and for anyone who's not a believer.
I think people have to understand that Israel is only the front line to a civilizational war between the forces of darkness, which is jihadi fundamentalism, and the free world. I think when people understand that it's going to get to them too, maybe that will get through. That's the only way that I can kind of universalize this. Yeah.
When you say we talk about the price that Israel's gonna have to pay, can you give us an idea of what you think that may be, based on what may or may not happen,
You know-
Ramadan and Rafah possible, entry?
Unfortunately, we've paid already a very, very, very dear price that we should never have paid. What's the price we're gonna pay? More dead soldiers, unfortunately, young men, 20 years old, 22 years old. It's tragic. These are our children. They're all our children.
Is there really a chance of eliminating Hamas?
Yes.
You really think so?
Yes.
The civilians.
You know that on Tuesday there was a demonstration of Gazans against Hamas.
Yes.
Yes.
They're fed up. They brought death and destruction to themselves, and they're protecting themselves under tunnels like cowards. And people aren't stupid.
I don't believe the media a lot. Obviously, what we see in America, so much of it is, it's force fed, what the message that they want out there. Maybe it's very different than what we see and what we trust. So I don't know if that's actually. It may have happened, may not have happened. I don't know. I don't know what they.
It for sure happened.
We have to kill Sinwar. That would be a good start. We've already killed his entire team. We have to kill him. And then we have to force the United States and the UK and all these countries that have great relations with Qatar, who is sponsoring and training and facilitating Hamas and hosting them in Qatar, we have to force them to either kick them out, dismantle them, whatever it is. That's what we have to do. And then if you ask me for the reconstruction of Gaza, I would bring in the Saudis and the Emiratis, because they know how to deal with these people much better than we do.
Right.
Is Israel quietly hoping for Trump?
Huh?
Is Israel, I assume, quietly hoping for Trump, or are they scared of him?
Look, I think that the problem with Trump is that he's a loose cannon, you know? But I'm hoping that the people around him, like the evangelicals that are very good supporters of Israel, and other people. Look, I don't get into too much. You can't put me in the Republican camp or the Democratic camp. You can't. And in Israel, you can't do politics like that because it's a very different system here, really. People are trying to push me this way or that way. I can't say. All I can say is that Biden started off really well, and now he's realized that electorally he's not gaining momentum because of Gaza, because of all these progressive idiots. And now he's trying to like roll it back and two-state solution and all this, which has no relation to reality. Two-state solution with who? You know, bring me Gandhi and I can make peace with him, but who do we have? Terrorists and thieves. That's what you got here. So I don't know, maybe our strategy should have been, sure, let's call Webler, sure, two states. Maybe I would have done that. Okay, sure, let's start a process. With who? Who do you start a process with? They have no idea. So in a way, I also think that the problem with the Democratic Party's outlook on the world is that they think that the Arab world thinks like them. They don't. They don't. And sometimes you need a Meshuggah like Trump to make everybody scared. And that's what happened the last time. You know, sometimes you need somebody like that. Just to make sure that people are like, oh, we don't want to mess with this guy. And that's what happens in the Arab world. And when Trump lost the election, my friends in Dubai were telling me, this is a disaster. This is what the Arabs are telling me, right? Not us telling them. And so, I don't know. We have to get along with any government. We can't be partisan. We can't afford to be partisan. But on the one hand, you have somebody like Trump who took away the funding from UNRWA, which is teaching kids to hate and kill, who reduced the funding to the UN, which is an inherently biased organization, who cut the cord of aid to Iran, and they were suffocating, and there was almost a regime change until these guys gave them oxygen again. Maybe that's what you need. I hate to say it. I mean, as a woman and a feminist, I have to hold my nose and say it, but I say it. Yes.
So, I don't know if you can answer this question, but let's say they do get rid of Hamas. You still have to deal with Hezbollah in the north and
Yes, you do.
Jihad and everything else. So, like, where do you draw the line? Where do you stop it?
We draw the line, we have to kill the people who want to kill us. So I actually don't think we're going to have a war with Hezbollah this year because the Americans are doing everything. The last thing Biden needs is a war between Israel and Hezbollah in an election year, an election 6 months. And the reason I say that is because the Americans are going to get dragged into a war with Hezbollah. They can stand by the side and tell us, oh, careful with Rafah. They can't do that with Hezbollah because they're getting attacked also in the northern part of the Gulf. So I think that they're going to do everything they possibly can to push back Hezbollah, the other side of the river, which was a commitment under one of the other wars that we had. And I don't think Hezbollah wants a war. I'm not sure Iran wants a war right now. And Israel is tired of war. So, and Biden will do anything not to have a war with Hezbollah. I think he wants us to wrap this up in Gaza quite quickly. So I actually don't think that, I could be wrong because anything could flare up at any moment. All you need is one Meshuggah to start something, right? But I don't think it's going to happen this year. I think it may take another year or two. We're going to have to deal with them at some point. We're going to have to deal with Iran. I would like a war with Iran from the whole West to realize that they're their threat too. We're just the first line of defense here. That's what the West doesn't realize. We're the first line of defense. And everybody's in trouble. Everybody's in trouble.
The West is in worse trouble.
Of course.
We had everyone living amongst us. even if their borders have no security like they have in Israel,
Yeah.
we're struggling.
Maybe
what
that's
I'm
when they'll
saying.
wake up,
So,
yeah?
like, getting Sinwar, does that really, do you really think that's gonna like
Yes,
curtail this? Because
Yes.
look at the ripple effect,
Yes.
it's all throughout Europe, all throughout the United States. I mean, there's.
of killing him, like when we killed Osama bin Laden, what the
No, what
problem?
I'm saying, you think that's gonna make everybody all over the world stop their hate? I mean, the.
No, no, they'll never stop hating,
We're still gonna
no.
have people who wanna kill us. and-
No, it's not about that. It's about winning this particular war with Hamas. If we get Sinwar, it's a psychological win, it's an operational win. It basically gets rid of all the crazy psychopaths